Hello there, and welcome to the I Never Knew podcast, also known as Inc. This show dives into the life experiences of people who have been through it all and have come through the other side stronger, better, and triumphant. Each story is raw, authentic, and, at times, heartbreaking. One thing joins it all together: the fact that the stories can help the listener learn and grow. Hosted by life coach Maureen, she sits down each episode with a new guest who will empower the listener to set out on their self-discovery journey and start to heal. Now you'll be joined by Maureen and her special guest. Please enjoy the show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of I Never Knew podcast with Life Coach Maureen. Every week, every Wednesday, we release new episodes, and we have amazing guests on, and I'm just enjoying this more and more as I go along. Today, I have a fabulous guest. First of all, her name is fabulous, and she is as fabulous as her name. Her name is Sequoia Craig, and she is a website designer for female coaches, which I can relate. I love my good website, and when you're not tech savvy, you need help. As the founder of Sequoia Craig Design, she helps coaches avoid tech overwhelm, love that verbiage, through website design, SEO, and email marketing. Her website is sequoiacraig.com, and I'll have that link in the episode description as well as on her promo. Sequoia grew up with a narcissistic and borderline personality disorder mother in Tucson, Arizona, not too far from me. I'm in the Phoenix area. And her story is about choice, and her personal mission is to inspire others to take a hard look at their lives and notice the choices available to them. Currently, she lives in Santa Cruz, California with her partner and their 2 pets. Welcome, Sequoia.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
I am so happy to have you here. First, I have to, because my books, of course, are all about dogs, I have to say, what kind of pets do you have?
So I have a German Shepherd who is my problem child. and then I have an orange tabby, and then I foster cats. So there's always just a revolving door of cats around here.
I love it. Creatures. Don't you find they're emotionally supportive no matter what mood you're in?
Yeah.
Especially when you say your problem child. German Shepherds have such big personalities.
Yes. Yeah. It's interesting you bring that up. There's a lot of healing throughout my story that has come through my dog. Like, she has helped me heal a lot. And yeah, I mean, it's really magical. Just the process of getting to nurture that alone is like really dear to my heart. But yeah, I mean, they provide a lot of humor too. They definitely test me a lot. My dog has put us through it. She's reactive, so we have had our fair share of trials with her, but she's my guardian angel. So
I love it, and they're just so unconditionally loving, and I just think that's why I wrote my books, because I was in a bad, dark place too, and they were just there for me. And I just remember looking at them thinking, they don't get stressed out about anything. They're just there, and they're just loving, and they really taught me how to just learn how to just chill out and just live in the moment and quit worrying. So tell me, let's go to the beginning. I like to start at the beginning of kind of who we are, because I think a lot of the people that I've spoken with, all my guests, we all kind of noticed things in our childhood that was off, and we thought it was us. And I think that sort of started the train down the track of not knowing we had choices or not being self-confident. So tell me what happened with your story from the beginning, how it felt being with a narcissistic parent, and how you felt about yourself.
Yeah, so there were a lot of moments where it was like totally internalized. Like, this is my fault. This is me. I'm doing something wrong. my mom is pretty textbook borderline and narcissistic. And she is very explosive, super manipulative. And so it was always on me. And I do remember, like, just, I started to think, maybe this isn't normal. You know, seeing my friends, they were having fun, they were enjoying their lives, you know, in middle school and high school. And it just started to feel like this doesn't seem right. And the really the catalyst for the eye-opening aha moment was my dad handed me a book about, I think it was about borderline personality disorder. I don't think it was about narcissism. He said, my parents are divorced. He said, don't take this to your mom's house. Like, here, this. And then he just closed my door and walked away. And I was like, hello, okay.
Wow.
This is
Wow.
what we're doing now. And I don't remember the name of the book, which I wish I did, because I talk about it a lot. But I just remember opening the first page and there was a checklist and going through it and just like checking almost all the boxes and just feeling so validated. And I would say like that was the pivotal moment in my healing journey of like realizing, okay, this is not normal. This is not about me, and I can feel better about this situation and ultimately move past it.
Wow. How old were you when he gave you the book?
I don't know exactly. I'm not sure. It was probably between like 12 and 14 would be my guess.
Wow. I mean, kudos to your dad. I have to give him credit, because you could have gone all that time and waiting until an adult to go, oh, now I'm just figuring it out. So kudos to your dad. And he must have seen that sign, seen signs as well, and probably helped the divorce proceedings. I'm sure he probably said, I just can't do this anymore. But he knew you'd always be her daughter and he had to help you.
Yeah.
And I love the validation part of that. So how did you look at your mom different, and how did you react to her different, and how did you change your view of yourself because of knowing that?
Yeah, so like from that point until I was about 17, I was still really in survival because my parents had joint custody and I was going back and forth. And so it was like just trying to get by, but that validation really helped me just understand, okay, like this is what we're working with. It taught me a little bit better of like how to deal with her. And then when I was 17, I said, F this, and I moved out of her house, and I didn't tell her. And then that was like the, okay, now we're out of survival, so we can start to like unpack everything that just happened. But yeah, just the awareness of like, this is not normal and it's not my fault was
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And also having the support of the other parent, I think, had to be really, really helpful, because a lot of us just, we didn't have any support and nobody knew what we were going through. So when you moved out at 17, did you move to an apartment? Did you move in with a friend?
I moved in with my dad full time. And then I was there for about a year, and then I left for college.
Okay. Wow. Did you know what you wanted to do after that? Did you say, "Oh, I want to help people," or I really want to go into, I love technology. I love, did you know what you wanted to do? I like to ask people.
Absolutely not.
Pretty common.
When I went to college, I only went for 1 year. I dropped out. But I thought I wanted to go into politics. And then right around when I dropped out, I was like, I'm going to be an obstetrician / gynecologist, which was a bold move for someone who struggled in school. And then I dropped out and ended up working. I never really knew what I was going to end up doing. I worked a bunch of odd jobs. I trained to be a coach for a little bit. And then I realized that coaches are not the best at technology. I'm an introvert. I don't really enjoy talking with people all day long, but I can help the people who are helping people, and get them connected with technology. And it's a huge passion of mine. So it's been great.
Oh, I love it. You're a coach's spirit animal because I want to talk all day and I don't want anything to do with technology. So that's amazing. Because yeah, usually the technology part is that logical side, and we're like this emotional side. I just
Mm-hmm.
want to help you and I want to take care of people. So
Exactly.
what a great fit for you. So tell me about a moment in your life where you just were so helpless and hopeless, and you thought, I don't know how I'm ever going to get through this. How am I ever going to get through this?
Um, every once in a while, my mom and I would get into these like big blow up arguments, and it wouldn't happen very often, like maybe once every few months, but I would like dread them because they would be so ugly. And they would usually start with her not respecting a boundary. So, an example that comes to mind is I was really upset. I don't remember what I was upset about, but I went to my room. I was like, I need space. I need to decompress because I had to really focus on regulating my feelings to protect the situation, which is something I learned really early on. Like, if you want to keep things calm, you have to regulate your own feelings. Um, so I went to my room trying to decompress, and my mom came in with her phone filming me. And she got all up in my face, and I said, please leave, I need space. And she stayed there, and she was laughing at me. And eventually, like, I shoved the camera away, and then that was like that was it. Then it was blow up. She was screaming at me. She took, all of my technology, and her favorite phrase was, you're gonna regret this. Um, and so I'm just like crying, like unsure of what's gonna come. And it usually, the way that those situations would move past is me like on my knees begging for forgiveness, because that's what the narcissist wants, right? Like, they want control, they want to be seen as the higher power. Um, and that night, like, I just felt so stuck. And I remember, I think she took my phone, but I had my computer. I remember like trying to figure out, like, what can I do to get out of here? How can I escape this? I couldn't drive yet. Driving gave me a lot of freedom. But it was just, I was so trapped, and I felt like I was never going to get out. And I think about that night a lot, just feeling so stuck. And there's not a lot of resources out there not a lot of resources on the internet for, 14, 15-year-olds who are currently living with, a parent who's borderline and narcissistic. But I remember like trying to find them. Everything's like adult children, but what about the children?
Right. That's interesting that you say that, because you're absolutely right. And my 14-year-old grandson is living with me now, and he has a friend who, excuse me, who has, and it's a girl who, it sounds like her mother is very, very similar to yours. And it breaks my heart. And I always tell my grandson to tell her, reach out to family, reach out to other people, reach out to a counselor at school, because like you said, without having a car or being an adult, you feel so controlled. They take over everything, and they know that they like you to be at their mercy. And we were talking beforehand where I have a daughter who she trained me to be manipulated. Like, she always made me feel like I would lose something. So it was threatening suicide, and because she had 3 kids, I was always at her mercy because I didn't want those grandkids anything to happen to them. So we were talking about how there's both sides of it. But yeah, that's a really good view of when they're when they're in that in-between stage, not even just the little guys, but the 14 to 17s before you can actually start driving. So I can only imagine what were so what when you talked to your dad, was there ever an option for you to just before that to say, "Hey, Dad, this is not a healthy environment," and did he want you to stay there and kind of learn from it, or what was his suggestion?
He really was pretty neutral about it. He gave me space to like vent, but he wasn't like encouraging me either way. He definitely told me that like as I got the older I got, the more choice I had. But ultimately it was like it wasn't super clear that that was an option to leave. I mean, maybe I just didn't feel like I was brave enough at that point. I always knew that there was going to be like an end. Like, I mean, I remember being in 6th grade and having like the taxi number in my phone, knowing that eventually I was going to leave and there was going to be this huge thing surrounding it. But it didn't come to fruition until I was 17.
That is so interesting. Like in the back of your mind, you knew, yet there's this, I'll keep going, I'll keep going, I'll keep going until I finally get to that point where I just can't take it anymore. And that's what happened was you had that big blow up and you're like, this is the moment. Mm-hmm. And I think that's very common when we've been in narcissistic relationships, whether it's with family or romantic wise, that it's an odd thing when you're a codependent like we are, you just think, I can take it, I can take it, I can take it. And then you finally the cup overflows and you're like, that's it. There's no more. I can't take anymore. So I just love your story. Now,
yeah, it's really interesting. It definitely applies to outside of narcissism, abusive relationships too. Like, I think people know I'm going to leave someday. This is not healthy, but it's like waiting for when there's enough courage or the time is right. And that's totally normal and totally okay to like wait for those moments. And I think there's a lot of shame and guilt that surrounds that, but it is, I mean, it's super normal.
There is definitely it's shame and embarrassment. You don't want to go out there and say, oh my gosh, my mom is this way, and people in relationships don't want to say, oh, I chose this person who does this to me. Why do you think we wait? Why do you think, what takes us so long to get out of it? And if there's someone in that moment right now, if there's a 14-year-old girl listening right now to you, what would you say to her?
I think it takes just like the security of it. Like, I think there's always that self-doubt of like, is leaving the best option? Is it what I really should do? And so I think that's like really what it takes to make that move and leave a dysfunctional relationship, whatever form that looks like. And so I guess my advice for anyone, however old, if they are in any kind of relationship that is unhealthy and dysfunctional, like, just know that you have the choice to leave and that timeline is up to you and it's not up to them. No matter how controlling they are, it's totally up to you.
I love that. And you say choice. When do you feel you realized you finally had a choice, and how did that change how you handled the rest of your life by recognizing you finally had choices?
The day I moved out. Wow. I was not planning it. It just happened. And that was like, oh my goodness, this is my life. I can take it into my hands. I had my high school sweetheart, and I had just gotten back from a trip with my dad's family where I had been gone for 2 weeks. And so I came back, and I should also mention I have 4 younger siblings on my mom's side. And so a lot of my job was parenting them. Like, it was my job to take care of them. So I was 17, get back from this trip after having been gone for 2 weeks. I walk in the door, hey Mom, it's great to see you. And she's on her phone, and doesn't even look up, and is just like, hey, and like just very like, it didn't matter who I was. And looking back at it, like, I know that there was a lot of jealousy around me spending time with my dad's family and that being like a healthy, fun environment. And so she just didn't acknowledge it. So, okay, whatever. So the next day, I wake up and I drive to my boyfriend's house, and I get this text from my mom, like, what are you doing? Your siblings are at home alone. You left them alone. And I'm like, well, what have they been doing for the past 2 weeks? Like, I know that my younger sister, who's like 2 years younger than me, so she was 15, watches them all the time. And so I was like, peace out. Like, I've been gone. I'm leaving. So she was just really, really angry. And it was the straw that broke the camel's back. Like, going from this pretty, I mean, I'm not going to say fully healthy, because there's dysfunction in most families, but this like pretty healthy family trip, and then like having fun as a high schooler, and then just to come into this that was just like so clearly dysfunctional, so clearly jealous. She just didn't want me to be happy, and so anything she could do to take that away from me, and that was it. I was done. So my high school boyfriend, bless his heart, borrowed his grandfather's truck, and we drove over to her house. We ended up getting like 3 flat tires that day. It was like a super crazy day. But we put all my stuff in garbage bags. I said bye to my siblings, and I left. My mom didn't know. She came home that day, and she was livid. But I didn't talk to her for 3 months after that. So that was like reclaiming that choice. And then from then, I think like it's just been a series of choices, but that was like the really drastic one.
Yeah, facing that fear, the fear of, especially when you have people in your life that try to control you and manipulate you, when you take away their control, they get very, very angry. And I think there's that hesitation until you finally get to that point, and then that fear is overcome. Once you overcome that fear and you face it, then you're sort of empowered, and you're like, okay, that wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. I can keep empowering myself. Now, how have your siblings been since you moved out, and how are you guys as far as the relationship? Are they aware of your mother's toxicity and all that?
I love that you're asking this question. I always felt a little guilty for leaving them behind and feeling like I abandoned them. And I was talking to my brother last week, and it really was clear to me that me leaving set the example for it being okay to take a stand for yourself. It was the first time since I left that I felt like totally, fully confident in that move. He's the only one that's still there, my youngest brother. Everyone else has left. 2 of them are over 18, but one of them is moving across the country to go to school, and he is definitely considering leaving. I made it very clear to him that he has choice. You know, she's coming up with all these threats, and I said, you know, all of her threats are, there's nothing to them, and whatever happens, I have your back. So you get to make the decision. Like, whatever you decide is going to be, you know, if you decide you want to move out, like, that's a big decision to make. There are definitely repercussions with that. But if you do decide you want to make that move, I have your back. So my relationships with them, it's been really interesting navigating them, because I never really felt like I was their sister. Like, I was always in between sister and parent. And my relationship with him, my youngest brother, is probably the strongest. And talking to him, I feel like a sister. Like, it's really sweet. Like, he'll ask me, like, where do I take my girlfriend on a date and things like that. He just turned 16, and it's just so sweet. And I don't really talk to the other siblings. I mean, they text me, hey, how are you? I text them back, but it's not much more than that. But I do know that they're they're taking stands for themselves, and yeah, so.
Isn't that amazing? You were the courageous one, you were the brave one, and sometimes we have to take that step for others so they can follow or they can see that they can do it too. And I think that's so neat that you have that support system there for your brother. Do you find that these traits appear in other family members? Do you feel like, wow, she said that and it reminds me of my mom? Because sometimes it's just that, well, we're raised around that nurture part where it comes out. Do you see that in
Like
your
the
sibling?
toxicity, or
Yeah, like the toxicity, or just the way that sometimes they say something, you could tell that's from your mother. That's something that your mother would have said to you.
I think my siblings now are really aware.
Okay.
So no, I don't think I would, maybe one of them, um, but not. Yeah, I mean, I think at this point, everyone is woken up. A few years ago, it was very different, but at this point, everyone has woken up to it.
And
Yeah,
that's the sad thing is they eventually isolate everybody. People finally decide, whoa, nobody can do this. And,
yeah,
sadly, I see that with my daughter. She's, losing her children. She's lost her siblings. And it's really sad. And the thing is it can change, but they're not aware that it needs to change. And that's the sad thing about narcissism.
yeah.
And you know,
Yes,
they don't get it.
yeah. I said to my partner the other day, like, my mom had 5 kids, and she's not gonna have a relationship with any of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those are not good odds.
And that's really the sad thing. And I look at my daughter and I think, man, her two are living with her ex's grandparents, and her oldest is living with me. And I'm thinking, when you're 40, because she would use them to get things from people, she would use the kids. That was definitely her weapon of choice. And the kids are getting older now, and so at some point you're going to be this 40-year-old lady sitting there by yourself. And when you're old and you have no relationship with your mother, your siblings, and your children, I don't want it to be later. I want it to be sooner, but they don't have the ability to have the self-awareness to say, maybe it's me. It's always
Right.
this blame game. So I just love the backstory. I thank you so much, because it's so interesting to see how that dynamic um, helps us when we make that choice to get out of it. So tell us when you decided to start your business and how it's going and what are your future plans.
Okay, so my business came to be after I dropped out of college. I worked a few odd jobs. I started managing 2 buy-sell trade stores here in Santa Cruz. And I said, I like the business part of this, but I don't love the people part of this. So I Googled business consultant Santa Cruz, and I ended up meeting with a business coach. And his wife is also like a life coach. And so I met with them, and they never had any employees, but a week later they offered me a full-time job. So I left my management position and took that and worked with them for about 3 years, and started to get trained to be a coach, and then realized, wait a minute, it's the people part I don't like. That's why I am here in the first place. Um, but started to, like, I mean, that, like, I was really doing a lot of work, like coaching and therapy, and just like really like digging up all of this stuff and working through it. And then when the pandemic started, my hours got cut. And so I was like doing all of the tech stuff for both of their businesses and building their websites and doing their SEO. And so the pandemic started, and they ended up cutting back my hours. So I started to take on a few clients of my own, and then eventually was like, this is what I want to do. Like, I always knew I would have my own business, but I just wasn't expecting it to happen so quickly. And so then I left, and I started this. And I left that, like, I stopped working for them August 7th, April 7th, 2021. So it's been just over a year doing it full time. And yeah, so I build websites. I do SEO and some email marketing. And the really exciting thing that's coming is I am totally pushing myself, like basically shoving myself outside of my comfort zone. Um, because I've been talking about creating an SEO training program for like a year, and I don't really talk about things before they're finished, but I got on Instagram and I was like, look, this is not done, but we're gonna do this. And so that's been like keeping me accountable. And so that launches next month, which is really exciting.
That is so exciting. And I can say this, when I started my business, I'm going in my 5th year now. I knew nothing. My daughter got a PR and marketing degree from Northern Arizona University, and I knew nothing about technology and marketing. You know, I didn't know anything. And then my daughter doesn't have a lot of patience with teaching me about technology. She's like, just let me do it. Just let me do it. And I'm like, but I need to know.
Right.
So the technology part for older folk like me, I'm 52, so it's challenging, and I love that you do that. Tell our listeners, if they're not familiar with what an SEO is, why this class is so important. And I am right on board with you. SEOs are life. You can't get any exposure without it. So tell us about SEOs.
Okay, so SEO stands for search engine optimization, and the way I like to imagine it is like if I gave you a bowl of jelly beans and there was like 1,000 jelly beans in there, and I held up like this pen and I said, give me the one that's closest to this. And you tried to just like dig through it, you probably wouldn't get it right. But if you poured out all the jelly beans and you picked out all the blue ones and then you held them up next to the pen, then you could pick out the one that was closest. And so when you have any large amount of information, you have to have a system to organize it. And that's what a search engine does. That's what their algorithm does. And the only way that they can do that effectively, because it's robots, is if we communicate what is on our website with Google. We have to let it know, like, this is the information that's on here because you're just a robot and I'm a human and we're talking to other humans. Like, let me help you to help them. So SEO helps connect us with the people out there that are looking for us. And there's tons to it, but it really works with Google, it works with all kinds of search engines, and it also affects Instagram and TikTok and Facebook and LinkedIn and all these other places. Like, they all have algorithms as well. And so once you have the basic tenets of how SEO works, you can start to apply those to other places.
That is wonderful. What would be your best advice for someone starting out their business to get their SEO big, to get their marketing started? Because that was my challenge. I had no idea what I was doing, and all my daughter said was, "It takes time, Mom. It takes time." And I'm like, I don't have patience, and I don't have time. I want everybody to see it, and I want them to see it now. So what would you have said to me at the beginning of starting that business?
You're not going to like it.
It takes time.
It does take time.
Okay.
If you want results now, then ads are the way to go. But the thing about ads is once you stop running them, then you stop getting those results. SEO is like, it creates traction over time. It's like you continue to get dividends off of it, right? So like a piece of content. Let me back up. The top tip that I could give any entrepreneur, even if you're just starting, but if you've had a business for 10 years, is to start a blog. Start a blog. If you take anything away from this podcast, notice the choices that you have and then start a blog. Blogs are so amazing for SEO, but the important thing to remember is the blogs that you're writing now are impacting your business months or even years from now. So it's not going to be instant, but you will start to see that traffic. So like my blog posts from a year or 2 years ago bring in tons of traffic, but my blog posts from, I have one launching tomorrow, but last week, like, don't really bring in any traffic, and they don't always land, but they'll bring in traffic, in 6 to 8 months. And so it does take patience, but like I said, it's like investing that time now so that you get the results later. And I know that people who start a business want that like instant gratification, and that's really hard to just like stick with it. Like I think that the first year, even if you're doing it part-time, can be really hard because you're not seeing a lot of results often. But just know that they're coming.
I love that. I can appreciate exactly what you're saying, because that's exactly what happened. I started the blog, and what I found, and tell me if you think, well, I mean, I know it worked for me, but tell me if you agree that we should share this information, is don't stick with just one thing. You have to do these like multi-platform things. So I would go and be a guest on a podcast. I would do the blog. I would go do a video on YouTube. So I found that the more I had out there, it was really interesting. I never Googled myself. I think I Googled myself like 2 years into the business. Sequoia, you could have knocked me over with a feather, because there were things that people had on there. There were places that I was that I didn't even know, like a college magazine had picked up my blog, or someone else had shared a video that I made, and it was so gratifying. I was 7 pages deep in Google, like I had 7 full pages of Google, everything I had done. So do you agree that's a good strategy?
Amazing. First of all, congratulations. That's very, very impressive, especially since it happened accidentally. What that is called building backlinks. So that's where basically all of those links that link to your website help build credibility on your website. Like it lets Google know this is a real business that other people are talking about. So it's not a robot, it's not spammy, it's obviously important to show this to more people. So that's really great. You don't want to spread yourself too thin, but it is really great to get out there, and more exposure is great. So yeah, I mean, I think that's really important. I'm not a social media expert by any means, so that's not my advice would be, when it comes to like social media or like your own accounts, do what you can do consistently. But when you're like doing something like this and like going on someone else's account or like guest blogging and things like that, then I think that is an excellent thing to do, especially when you're just getting started, because you see like those, these big people in Forbes and things like that, and they always have tons of interviews that they've done, and there's a reason for that.
Yes. So when I started the business, there's all kinds of people coming at me. This is that, and it was overwhelming. You'll get people on LinkedIn. Oh, we help coaches build this. We help coaches do this. We help coaches do this. How do you sort through? And I'll admit, I was scammed once and one time only, and I never was again, because I knew what to look for. How do you avoid those things with the SEO and the marketing and the business wise? How do you know what to join and what not to join? Do I create a Google account? Do I create a business PayPal? Do I create a business Yelp? Like, it's a lot when you're starting out as a business. What do you think is a good way to filter through? Do we need someone to help us with that, like you?
So I think what you're talking about are like people sending you like cold pitches, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
My own like integrity things with cold pitches is most of the time they don't come from a lot of integrity. They can be done right. I'm not saying never do them, otherwise I'd be a hypocrite. I totally am guilty of sending cold emails. But I, when with stuff like that, like if it's appealing, trust your intuition. But more often than not, if they're like leading with like lots of like really bold statements, and it's usually too good to be true. And I would say, like, if you're looking, if someone sends you like a cold message and they're like, this is this really great thing that I have and you need it, like, go see what else is out there. If you feel like you really need that, go do some research and see who else offers that, because they're not the only ones. And then you can kind of decide whether or not you really do need it. But I know that, you're an ideal client for someone and they're trying to make money off of you. And so, I mean, if I would be weary about that stuff. I guess that's not very helpful, I don't think, but just like trust your intuition. And I would say, like, if someone comes to you and you think it's a good idea, go do your own research and see what else you can do.
I found that Googling companies that come at me, if I Googled it and it would come up, scam, or, because everybody has an opinion about something on the internet. And so when you Google, you can see the reviews. I'm a big review person. I love going and looking at reviews of people's businesses because that says everything. Those are authentic. Those are very authentic. So what's the difference on an SEO between organic and the non or paid ad, the paid customer? What's the difference?
So there's search engine optimization and there's search engine marketing. So SEO and SEM. SEO is usually organic, SEM is paid. And SEO takes time to build. You do it naturally. It's about optimizing your website. Like I said, like letting Google know this is the information that's on my website. There's a lot you can do just within whatever website builder that you're on. Like they usually have like an SEO section. So just like filling that out. And then blogging is really helpful. So basically SEO is all about like taking what you already have and making it more digestible for Google's bots. SEM, search engine marketing, is about paying money to be at the top of Google so that you get that ad for certain things. And in my personal experience, I prefer SEO better. It might be because I'm very frugal, I don't know. But it just is really cool that once the ads, like it just keeps going forever and ever. Like if I stopped my business right now and I left my website up and I didn't create any new content, I would still generate traffic on my website because I have all these blogs that continue to bring in traffic. I mean, I have one blog that I wrote a few months into my business about Squarespace and MailChimp that like ranks third if you search Squarespace and MailChimp, and it brings in more traffic than my homepage does. Like I get more hits on that blog than my homepage, and I send people to my homepage. I mean, it's on my business card, but like this one blog brings in so much traffic, and I wrote it 2 years ago. So with search engine marketing, like I definitely did create some ads, especially early on in my business, and my traffic would go up, but I didn't really get a lot of hits. I mean, I'm not an ad expert, so it makes sense. And I'm sure if I invested more and hired an ad expert, then they would have done a better job. But the thing is like now, having been multiple years since that point, like those ads aren't affecting my business at all. I mean, they've been over for a long time. So, I mean, that's just my 2 cents. And, someone who runs ads and like that's what they do are going to talk about how important they are and how useful they are and everything that you can get from them. Did I lose you?
So as you were talking, I and we'll pick up right where we were. That's really interesting, and I found that the search engine marketing part of it can be expensive, and you're right. It's almost like it's a temporary thing. Like, oh, it'll get me in front of someone for a week or two, and it'll be, and they'll push, these companies will push, oh, $300 a month, and we'll get you a number one in Google. But versus the search engine optimization, it's like you said, it's almost a compound interest.
Exactly.
Is how I look at it. So when my daughter she had someone create my website, and when she was having them create it, it was taking forever. And I was like, what? Isn't it just you just create this website? It's easy. And she said, no, Mom, there's a lot to it. So there's the font, there's the color story. So tell us, that's just a little touch of what I know. Tell us, when creating a website, what's some of the 5 most critical points that you want when people visit that website?
Okay, 5 most critical points. So number 1 would be the section at the top, which is before you scroll. It's called the hero image on your homepage because it is the hero, it's the star of the show, and you really want that section to like really be impactful and kind of set the stage for what the rest of your website is about and also what your business is about. So I would say that image or video or whatever content is there, that and the text on top of it is very important. So that's definitely my number one. Number two would be to make sure that your pages are long. And I don't mean like go on forever, but I do see a lot of websites where there's just not enough information and there's like nowhere to scroll, and it just feels kind of empty and almost pointless. So I would make sure that if you're going to create a new page for some type of service or content or whatever, that you have enough to like really fill a page, so that you can provide enough information.
Yeah.
And then let's see. Third thing is using images that are not, I guess I'm talking about mistakes, things that are important. Make sure that your images really convey the message that you're trying to convey. So if your business is really like natural and fluid, and you're a coach who's like really into like holistic healing, then having a picture of like a stock image of a man in a business suit are not going to convey that. So just making sure that your photos feel like really connected with the message that you're trying to send, because people use photos to like feel into the like vibe of your business. So that's really important. Photos are really important, and making sure that you have photos. Like, it's not fun to visit a website where there's just tons of text. I think that was 3. Okay, and 4 would be making sure that your forms work, because if people can't contact you, then your website is not doing anything. So making sure that forms, and I'm going to tuck links into there as well. So making sure that like everything works so that it's functioning, because otherwise it's just like a billboard with nothing on it. And then the last thing is making sure that you have call to actions. So a call to action is anytime you're asking someone to like do something. So it can be like sign up or click here or fill out the form. But too often I see websites where they have a lot of information and it's really great, but they're not like suggesting an action to be taken. And so people read their website, they get a lot of value, and then they leave. But you want to really encourage people to reach out for more or purchase something or get more information or whatever it is, but just like ask for that action.
Oh, those are really good. Those are really, really good. It sounds like we really want people to engage. We want them to play around with it. We want you to scroll. We want you to, you want it to be fun. You want people to be able to go all over the place. Like, I have all these tabs. I've got media tabs, speaking tabs, blog tabs, now podcast tabs. It's like, you want it to be kind of like a business video game, I guess you could say. I know that's kind of a silly analogy, but we want fun. We want things that catch our attention and keep our attention. And the last one I would say is super crucial is maintenance of your website. You can't just build it and leave it. It has to. So you're not going to just hire Sequoia to create this. You're going to you'll help people maintain that website, correct?
Yeah, I mean, the thing about the website that I make is I really try to make them like so that people can make edits and things on their own. But yeah, I do help my clients maintain them. But my whole thing is like I want to empower people to feel less afraid of their technology, and lean into it. Like, it is a really helpful tool, and so many entrepreneurs are just afraid of it.
Yeah, it definitely is like face your fear, get over the hump, like creating this podcast. These things happen all the time. These little blips, the computer shuts down, the Skype doesn't work on theirs. And I'm learning to embrace the bugs. You can't have failure or success without having failure. So you have to learn from those. And I keep keeping that mindset of that's okay. Every time I have something that doesn't work, I fixed it, and now I do know how it will work going forward. Right. So as we wrap up, the 2 things I ask all of my guests are, what is the one thing you never knew that you know now, and you can help others experiencing the same struggle that you have?
So the one thing that came to mind is how strong I am. I continue to surprise myself when things happen. Just my ability to process and get grounded. And yeah, I've had some stuff come up in my family in the past few months, and I just, like, it's been pretty amazing how quickly, like, I learned to just go into my self-care and take care of myself and process things in a really healthy way. So I think the lesson, or the thing that I would like to convey, is that, like, we are so much stronger than we give ourselves credit for, and the things that we think that we can't do, that's BS. Like, we totally can. Whether it's starting a business or leaving a dysfunctional relationship or dropping out of college or, any of these things, like, we can do the things that we think that we can't do.
That's amazing. And that really is the gist of life, is you don't know until you do it. And being afraid of it, procrastinating, and hiding from it is never going to get you that strength. And I love what you said, you're always surprising yourself. And I think that's a great motto for any survivor and overcomer. And we surprise ourselves at that saying, I never knew how strong I was until I had to be. And right. I think that is super cool. So ending it on the highest note possible, since you talked about self-care, I always ask my guests, what is your shameless self-indulgence that you do for yourself that's fun or kooky or whatever?
Okay, definitely dance.
Oh,
that
yay.
is one of them. And I would say, like, good food.
Me too. I love food.
Food is just so good.
I know. It's like universal. I was talking to a young lady who said for her, pasta is oxygen, and I thought that was just so a perfect way to say it. She was Italian, she was Italian, and I forgot what her other part of her nationality, but she said pasta is oxygen. So what's your favorite food? What's your go-to, like, comfort? Ooh, I gotta have it.
That's a good question. No. Okay, I'm definitely salty over sweet. I prefer salty. What's my go-to? Okay, well, my favorite food of all time is Ethiopian food.
Really? Oh, I've never tried Ethiopian food, and I've always wanted to. So what's a good meal that I would order?
Well, if you go there, what I always do, so I'm a vegetarian, so I always just say that they're like bread. It's called injera. So I say injera with vegetarian, you do it. Like, just give me whatever is best. And I just always trust them, and it's always amazing.
Oh, Ethiopia. I love the uniqueness, and so I love ethnic foods. I'm not a hamburger, spaghetti. I don't want spaghetti. Believe it or not, that's probably weird.
No, I'm not a big pasta person either.
Oh, I love Indian food. Indian food is
it's very similar.
Oh, that's why when you said Ethiopia, I was like, I wonder if it's just like that.
Yeah,
well, good advice, guys. Go try an Ethiopian restaurant and keep doing what you're doing, and call Sequoia to build your website and to help you with that SEO, because she knows her stuff. And I'm going to tell everyone her website it's sequoiacraig.com, and I'm going to spell it.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's the challenge for people.
It really is. Well, it's like a sequoia tree, which I imagine you probably were named after because you grew up in Tucson.
Yep.
It is SequoiaCraig.com, guys. And again, I'm going to have this in the notes on the podcast episode, as well as in the Facebook promo, so you guys should just copy and paste that. So is there anything else you want to promote besides your website? Is there anything, a blog or anything like that you have going on?
I do want to just say that my SEO training program is launching. And so that's like the really big thing. It's a 4-week process, and you walk away with a fully optimized website.
That is amazing. When does that start?
It starts on, that's a good question. I don't know off the top of my head. It starts in the 3rd week of August. The cart opens August 1st.
Okay. Perfect, guys. The
We
cart
start
opens
August 23rd.
Oh, great. So August 23rd, guys, that class will start, but they can go on and sign up August 1st.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the wait list is open right now. So on my website, there's like a little place to sign up to get $50 off.
Hey, discounts. I love bargains. That's awesome. And you guys are not getting discounted services. You're getting a discounted price. There's a difference there. And
Well said.
Sequoia is amazing. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much, Maureen.
And thank you for tolerating my technical bugs.
Oh, of course. It's no big deal.
It's probably because it's 115 here in Arizona, and even in the house, it is so hot. And I've never had my laptop shut down in the house. It's that humid today. So.
Yeah, that's crazy. I remember like my phone like would have the heat thing. Doesn't happen here anymore.
I know.
Just Arizona things.
Nobody understands. It's a dry heat. Yeah, well, it's still a heat. Heat,
oh my goodness, yeah.
All right, honey. Well, thank you so much for joining me. I'm so happy I got to connect with you through Sabrina. Love her to death. And we'll keep in contact. And I can't wait to get your episode up. And you have a fabulous week.
Thank you. You too, Maureen. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to the I Never Knew podcast. If you found today's episode inspiring and educational, please be sure to follow, subscribe, and spread the word. The more people that join the Inc. community, the more it can develop and influence others as we work together for a healthier and brighter future. Until next time.